Hello there. We are going to be looking at some pretty unique and incredible coffee brewers from Costa Rica today. Costa Rica is a major producer of coffee in Central America, and they have some pretty unique brewers that I think we should all look at. So without further ado, let me go collect one of them from my background. You've been looking at this the whole time and you didn't even know. These are our two brewers for today. Over on this side, we have the Vandola, and over on this side, we have the Chorreador. These are two very, very different types of brewers, so we're gonna go into each of them, we'll talk about their histories, and then we'll brew some coffee on them. I think, let's just start over here. Let's start with the Vandola. Interestingly enough, while this brewer has grown in great popularity and acceptance in Costa Rica, it's actually a pretty new brewer. This was created in 2015 by miner Alfaro, and it is an entirely one-piece ceramic brewer. As you can see here, it is incredibly unique, it's incredibly beautiful, and it may have some shaping components that may seem similar that we'll talk through in a second. Vandolas to this day are still 100% handmade, and they actually take about a month to make from start to finish. This is why I tend to keep mine behind on demonstration instead of in regular brewing circulation, just because this was a dear gift and I'm very concerned about breaking it. Even right now, I'm like, we need some space here. The Vandola was made to be a brewer that can brew large amounts of coffee. It was made to be put in a cafe, and it was built to have this sort of carafe feature to it where you could put this in the middle of the table and easily pour coffee for different guests. However, in brewing style, it tends to be most similar to the Chemex, and it actually can use Chemex filters. In the top here, you have your cone where you can place a conical filter. In the bottom here, you have your brewing chamber. You have a spout for pouring, a handle, and then interestingly enough, you have a very small hole right here underneath the handle. The idea of this hole is to allow oxygen to pass through the coffee while it's brewing to, in theory, create some more stronger aromas and fragrance throughout the brew. Speaking of filters though, let me show you what you can use. Really, you could put kind of whatever conical filter you want in here. I think the most popular ones that you're gonna see are either conical filter for the V60, this is the number 2 size, or, as I mentioned before, as this is shaped and sized similarly to a Chemex, you can also use Chemex filters. A lot of this is just gonna depend on what type of paper filter you like the most. I tend to like V60, we'll use this today. I'm gonna go grind some coffee, then we'll talk about some of the unique quirks about brewing with the Vandola. I'll be right back. I want to give a huge thank you to Wild Grain for sponsoring today's video. Alright, get excited everyone, because I'm about to show you some delicious breads, pastries, and pastas. For the next minute, I'd like you to settle in, enjoy the sights, and imagine the smell of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. Now, Wild Grain is the first ever bake from frozen subscription box for everything from croissants to fettuccine. Wild Grain partners with small bakers and pasta makers across the country to deliver incredible baked goods right to your doorstep. And, as one of my favorite things about them, every item bakes in 25 minutes or less, so you can enjoy fresh out of the oven goods, even when you're in a rush. You can build your own box each time without the risk of getting bored, as Wild Grain is constantly adding new seasonal and limited time goods. And to put a little extra good back into the world, for every membership, Wild Grain donates 4 meals to the Greater Boston Food Bank. So, if you're ready to get your bread on, Wild Grain is offering all of you a very special offer with $30 off your first box plus a free item in every order when you visit wildgrain.com/MDC and use code MDC. That's right, a free item in every box when you visit the top link in the description and use code MDC. Welcome back. So we have some coffee ground to like a medium coarse kind of pour over setting. We have our filter, we have some water heated over here. Let's brew. Now, one of the things you may already be thinking about, and one of the primary differences between this brewer and some other ceramic brewers, is just the sheer size of it. This is a very, very large brewer. It is a lot of material, and right now it is very cold. This is a brewer that most definitely needs almost a little bit of extra preheating. So I'm gonna preheat it right now, as well as wet down the filter, and I'm gonna use, I don't know, I've gone up to like 200 mils of preheating water here, but traditionally I'll use about 150 and then set it to the side to let it warm up while I get everything else prepared. We're just gonna do a nice juicy preheating right now. while that warms up, let's talk about our coffee. You can treat your brewing and your brewing recipe very similarly to however else you would brew on a conical filter. A 1:15 ratio, 1:16, plus or minus, whatever you like to do is totally acceptable. I like to use about a medium grind size for this, and I'm also using some Costa Rican coffee to keep in theme with everything we're doing here. This is a really, really lovely coffee from the Las Lajas micromill in Costa Rica, and I actually competed with a Las Lajas coffee I think my first year of competing, so this is kind of a fun full circle. Now, before we dump this into our filter, one of the notes I will say is always remember to dump your preheating water because this is a completely opaque brewer. It's very easy to forget, and not that I've done it, no, definitely not. You can brew very large batches of coffee with this brewer. However, today I'm gonna go in with 25 grams of coffee and 400 mils of water. Shake it out, level the bed, and then commence as you usually would. And I'll see you when we're done brewing. All right, our brew has finished, and the one thing I will note that is nice about using a Chemex filter in a brewer of this size is the Chemex filters has little flaps that comes up around the edge that makes it very easy to remove the filter. With the V60, you're kind of left peeling it off the walls of the brewer. Incredible pouring experience. Cheers. Now, I just love the coffees that come out of this. I think part of it is just the experience of using a brewer like this is so wonderful, but I've tested a range of coffees on this. Everything from darker, more traditional roasts to kind of the lighter, funkier, fruitier profiles, and everything has this really, really beautiful creaminess that comes off of this. I love the coffees, I love the brewer, it's beautiful, but let's move on to something even more traditional. Now this right here is the Chorreador, and the Chorreador refers to the actual coffee stand that we have here. This is a complete side note, but a very wonderful like travel coffee brewer because you are ready to go. However, this brewer has another component, and that is this little bag right here. This is sometimes called the bolsa or the bolsita, which translates pretty much directly to sachet or little bag. You'll also sometimes find these called coffee socks. This is a cloth filter for our coffee, and it works just like any other coffee filter would. Your coffee goes in here, hot water gets poured into it, and then, in theory, if you've done those two steps correctly, you'll get some coffee liquid out the bottom. You'll notice that rather than being a pure white, this coffee filter has a slightly beige hue. That's because these are reusable. They're not infinitely reusable, but they are reusable for quite a long time. Once you're done, you can clean them with hot water, you let them dry, and then traditionally the best way is to kind of store these in a fridge in an environment that is somewhat antibacterial. You can use these again and again, and overall they tend to be a bit more economical and also environmentally friendly, which is why you see these used in a lot of traditional brewing over paper filters. One of the main things to know about cloth filters over paper filters is that these are going to be a lot more porous than their paper counterparts. This can sometimes lead to under-extracted coffees if you don't take precautions. However, I tend to like to get ahead of this by grinding a bit finer than I usually would for a paper filter pour over. But I'm so excited to use this. Let's brew some coffee. It kind of feels wrong to use a scale for this sort of brewing method, but we're gonna do it regardless. There are different sizes of coffee sock filters that you can get. I have a pretty small one here. You can use your standard 1:15, 1:16, whatever ratio. No need to tinker with it. I'm gonna use 15 grams of coffee here, and we're gonna end up with 250 mils of water. Again, this is ground a bit finer than I would traditionally for pour over and what I ground for the Vandola earlier. Just gracefully now drop that right in there. It's not so much about leveling the bed, but I do like to just make sure there's not too much coffee clinging to the sides there, hopefully not creating too many air pockets. Drop that back in. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna first do a bloom. So I'm gonna saturate everything for about 30 seconds with probably about 50 mils of water. And then afterwards, the way I'm timing my pours is less about timing and more about making sure that I keep the water level somewhere just around this edge right here. I don't want the water level to completely decrease all the way through. I want to keep it pretty steady. So just keeping an eye on it, refilling it. We're going to aim for a brew time about 2.5 minutes. Very, very tiny circles here. Oh, this is so much fun. I love brewing like this. And you can very easily see why this sock ends up turning a pretty intense brown color. We're just about done brewing. Let's enjoy some coffee sock coffee. Ooh, that is tasty. I think, unironically, this is one of the best cups I have brewed on this in a long time. Granted, it is a delicious coffee, but this is a very nice cup right here. Now, one of the things that I always expected out of a brewer like this, and I would imagine some other people expect or have questions about, is the texture. When I initially brewed on this, I kind of imagined this to have almost like a French press texture. For me, this seemed like a type of coffee brewing that would lead to something that's a little bit chewier, a little bit more like grainy to it. But actually, it's the exact opposite. I've found the coffees that come out of this to be very, very silky, they're smooth, they're creamy, they're very, very tasty. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult, I find on this, to sometimes find that flavor nuance that you're able to achieve and that kind of clarity that you can find with a paper filter. But when it comes to texture, this is lovely. And with that, this has been a look at two of the most distinct and iconic brewing methods that Costa Rica has. Again, Costa Rican coffee is phenomenal. I had the honor of visiting Costa Rica about 1.5 years ago when I was gifted this, and I had some of my favorite coffee experiences there. These are incredible ways of brewing. I think they're so fun to do today, and I hope someday you get a chance to do them yourself. In the meantime, my name is Morgan. You can find me here once a week plus shorts, or on TikTok or Instagram almost every single day. This was a blast. This was so much fun. I'm gonna put this very safely back where it belongs. And until next time, I'll see y'all later. Have a good day, everyone.